Well, hey everybody, where have I been? I didn't even post for Veterans Day. That's pretty unusual as a veteran myself. And I haven't really talked about anything. Where have I been? What's been going on and everything over the past week or so? Well, I talked to Brittany again, and I learned a couple things. Now, before I really get into all of this, I'll tell you that this is going to be another long video. It's going to be kind of on accident. I'm going to try to make it as short as possible, but I'm really going to go through everything that's happened and sort of give you an update. It's going to be the same things: what happened, how I felt about it, and some speculation towards the end. But there's going to be an extra special little surprise in it as well. So I've been planning this video for a little while. I have been looking around at different things, looking around at my resources, really getting into it. But here's the long and short of it. Here's what has happened since last video. Of course, yes, I spoke to Brittany again. It was much the same. Me telling her that, hey, everybody on God's green earth is telling us to use open, honest communication with each other. Her refusing to do so, her accusing me of everything under the sun. Usually what happens is I'll just ask for one truth. I'll start out with one truth. Now, I could start a ball rolling, try to push in that direction a little bit. It's kind of like a lie detector test, right? They ask some control questions. Is the sky blue? Yes or no? Are you holding a phone in your hand while you're talking to me right now? Yes or no? These sorts of things. But it's definitely something that the cat's coming over here because I'm talking. But it's not been an effective tactic to sort of ask those control questions and then hope that she continues to tell the truth as time goes on. What usually happens is I'll ask a question and she will fall silent completely, which means that she's beginning to try to think of a lie. And that's usually what happens in the first place. If you start asking her for answers for specific questions and stuff like that that she doesn't want to answer, and that's usually because she feels bad about doing a bad thing or something like that. It's some sort of internal dialogue, but that's going on. So I can't read minds. I don't know what she's feeling and what she's thinking whenever she does this, but she doesn't like answering questions honestly. She does not like the idea of open and honest communication at all. So I had my back against the wall a great many times. Like I said, I'd call her every single night. She said that, oh, it's annoying for me to call her every night. Of course it is. Open and honest communication is annoying until you start to get used to it. I believe there's a book out about it called Nonviolent Communication. I don't know who it's written by. I haven't read it yet. It's something that was recommended to me at some point in time. So of course, doing that, and if you go into a therapeutic environment, a lot of times what will happen is they'll give each person a talking stick, and they'll have them do things like say, whenever you do this, I feel this way. They have I statements and stuff like that, and it gets a little annoying. But whenever you get used to the process, you can start really making a difference. There's a lot that goes into doing things in a medically recommended and medically consistent way, in a therapeutically consistent way. Basically, doing things in a way where nobody of authority can really disagree with the way that you're doing things on a medical medical authority or even legal authority. Um, uh, Doing something like that, it takes time to program yourself and to program your speech and communication and everything to really get towards that. And I think one of the pieces of the puzzle here, you know what? I'll leave that to the speculation section. I'll keep going with what happened for now, and then we'll talk about other things later. But I would speak to her. She said, "Oh, it's annoying," and I said, "Of course, yes, it's annoying, but that's another one of those things." She likes to procrastinate for hours and hours, days, months, weeks, years, and she has. Whenever we first got married in 2015, it took her, well over a year and a half of one excuse after another, a bunch of different lies, to avoid going down and going to the housing office and staying there for an hour and then leaving that place with a house, and that's basically the way that it works in the military. You go down, you say, "Hey, I'm supposed to have a house, I'm married, I have this person to take care of," or whatever. And then they say, "Okay, well, you can, based on your rank or whatever, you can have these types of houses. There's this much wait before you can get that house, so you'll get money until then, and then you can stay in an apartment for an hour in a hotel, or your spouse can go back home to their family or whatever until you get this house." But it doesn't matter. But it's for a year and a half of procrastination that ended up costing us a lot of money, because of course we paid out the nose to get an apartment in very short order, things like this. So she really likes to procrastinate, and I think that this is all just normal human being things. This is of course you want to procrastinate on anything that you feel a little iffy about, but communicating that you feel iffy about it can help you. Let's say you go to a group of friends and you say, "Hey, I've been procrastinating studying for this upcoming test in biology," or something like that. "It just seems like none of the concepts click," or something along those lines. And so I've just been I don't even know where to start. I'm supposed to read the chapter and it's all cut up, and I don't understand the concepts that are going through in class. And your friends can get together, or even your family, and they can get together and start saying, "Well, what do you not understand about it?" And you say, like, "I don't understand this. I don't understand, like, chirality and stuff like that. Protons, neutrons, electrons. Two of them are basically the same size, and one of them is exponentially smaller. One of them, two of them are in the nucleus. One of them is outside." These sorts of things. It can become complicated to do all of this. And maybe if you have a peer group that are in similar situations, they can start to help you parse it apart. Maybe they know how you think of things, or even relate it to something that you already know and understand. The nucleus is like this part of a tractor if you're come from a farm background like me, and the electron is like this part of a tractor, or something like that. Whatever it takes. And even with your family, maybe you have a really uneducated family, but they can help you find a tutor, or they can help you get to the tutors. They can help you find an online tutor so that you don't have to drive there or get transported there. You can do stuff like that. It's fairly simple to just be open and honest with your communication and work through your problems that way. But what ends up happening is maybe that didn't work whenever you were a kid, and now you're an adult and you don't know any other way to get through life, so you just keep going with a way that's never worked, or at least it worked for like a heartbeat as a kid, and so it's the only thing that worked at least once, and so you just keep using that tactic over and over again. Again, that's a little bit of speculation, but it's sort of what happens here. So these are just human being things. None of this is really new. It's just taken to the extreme. And that's usually what happens with all these illnesses and stuff like this, is you take it to the extreme. Whenever I went to the psychiatric internment program and everything, one of the first things I did, the social worker asked me, what's going on? How's it going? And I said, well, I'm getting divorced, and the only people taking care of me, I don't know how long they're going to live. And once they, if they die off, they're the last people in my family that really give a crap about me, and are willing to help me at all, and are able to help me at all. And as soon as they die, I'm not going to have anybody backing me up. I have no usable skills. I just got kicked out of my, branch of the military, where at that time I hadn't been yet. No, yes, I had. Yeah. So I just got kicked out of my branch of the military for, being depressed. I don't know what's going on, and if this trend continues, I'm going to end up homeless. My cats are going to die, and they're the only things on planet Earth that even give a crap about me anymore. That's a lot. And it might be true on an absolute value, but it's taken to the extreme. Who is in their parents' house, or who's in their guardian's house, or who's in anyone's house getting taken care of by somebody else, and you're wondering how long that they're going to live? That's extreme. That is that generalized anxiety disorder talking. That's that major depressive disorder talking. You can tell, even if something is true in the most absolute sense, it's taken to the extreme. So, Brittany procrastinated, and I read a study, and I think it was published by Cambridge, I could be wrong about that was talking about how 95% of students procrastinate. If you've ever been a student, which most of us have, we went to some kind of school at some point in time, 95% of students procrastinate. I don't know if that means 95% of the time all students procrastinate. I don't know if it's just 95% of students have procrastinated at some point in time, but it's just a normal thing. It's just taken to the extreme. That's where that's where you start picking up on signs of mental illness, and you start to realize that there's something wrong. Even if you can't diagnose a mental illness, then you can start to figure out that there's something that's really wrong, and you can start to rely on resources like the Violence Prevention Center in Belleville, Illinois that I went to, and stuff like that, since it was a free resource. And I think that there's one in Alton. It's like Center something or the other. I cannot remember its name right now, but there's one in Alton that's also free. It's got a ton of counselors and people who are capable of diagnosing these illnesses and going from there, and advising you whenever things like this go on. But that procrastination, that's something that's that everybody does, but she just took it to this huge extreme. Years of procrastination, and it goes that along with that with everything else that she does. So she talked to me on the phone. She said, she would fire off 1 million lies, and I would just take all of them and I'd say, that's not true, that's not true, that's not true, I can prove it, I can prove it, I can prove it. I would ask her for one simple truth, like, why are you been avoiding my phone calls? I call her every single night. For a while, she would say, well, I'm avoiding your phone calls because you say the same thing every time. And I say, I don't say the same thing every time, and if you would like, I can record my end of the conversation. I could just record my own voice in my own room, and it wouldn't even record what you're saying on the other side of the phone call. And I can hand you that recording if you'd like. I can easily prove this point 100% correct. I can easily prove that wrong. I am not saying the same thing every time that we talk. She said, well, the context is the same. And the context is that you just don't want this divorce. And I said, it doesn't matter what I want or don't want. This is all in your hands. You have the attorneys, you have the paperwork, you have the steps that you need to divorce me and everything. This is all in your hands. You know the reason why I'm calling. I'm calling because you haven't gone to medical to get your bad conduct disorder treated, to get treatment for your illnesses. And, she will not see me as a potentially beneficial person. It's something that doesn't allow her to sort of keep treating me as horribly as she does, keep treating me the way that she doesn't want to be treated, that she doesn't want anybody to be treated, that nobody would want to be treated. She can't keep behaving the way that she does if she thinks of me as a person who's actually trying to help her. So she has to think of me in a way that allows her to keep treating me the way that she does. And again, that's a part of the speculation and cognitive dissonance and these sorts of things. But it explains, what's happening in the phone call. And at one point in time, I asked her, do you stop talking to friends or family because they say the same thing every day? If you're talking to friends at work or coworkers, do they say the same thing every day? And if they do you stop talking to them entirely? And I got her to admit, no. And that's what happens. She'll fire off a million lies because she wants to argue about anything else. She wants to avoid the truth at all times. She wants to avoid the truth. And I don't know why she wants to avoid the truth. I know one thing. She's been lying basically since she was born. She's a compulsive liar. She'll lie about anything and everything for any or no reason. I haven't seen any signs of duping delight. I see a lot of signs of her using her limited willpower reserves and not being able to really be productive after she says a lie over and over again until she gets it to stick, she gets it to work. I see that she's got a lot of stress in her life. She's actually gained a fair bit of weight. She told me that she's on the edge of her weight category in the United States Navy. It is affecting her life. And that's part of the problem here. It's not just that, oh, hey, poor me, right? Who gives a crap about some white, bald guy in Illinois? Who cares? Nobody should care. And, nobody will care, nobody should care. What is happening is this is a patient that is refusing treatment, and it's hurting her. And each and every person that is getting in the way of her receiving treatment is making the situation worse. She is hurting herself. She is hurting everybody else around us. And of course, she's hurting a mentally ill veteran, myself. It's very, very specific. She's broken the law multiple times. She's not sorry for doing so. She's not doing anything to prevent herself from breaking the law in the future. And instead, she's shooting the messenger. Every time anybody says, hey, what you're doing is wrong, she runs away from them. And that tactic had been successful to her whenever she was a child, and she's continuing to do it today as a 27-year-old female active duty in the United States Navy. It just continues to go this way. So, after a while I got fed up with everything. I began to use my resources. What had happened before was that I contacted her chain of command, and whenever I did contact her chain of command, I got the number of a person who had some sort of San Diego number. I got his number mixed up with the number of the domestic violence caseworker that was working down at San Diego Police. And then I couldn't get a call back for any of those numbers. Both of them stopped working, and I lost track of it entirely. So I called her chain of command again. And here's where a little bit of philosophy comes in here. It isn't speculation, but one of the things I realized over the course of the past week or so is that nobody's really telling me to shut my mouth. No one's really giving me a gag order. I have no legal recompense to try and protect any of these people. And they're not asking for any recompense. They are not asking for any degree of confidentiality at all. No one is ordering me to do so. It's just something that most people do. They try to keep their problems and their drama to themselves. And if they don't, then it's considered kind of trashy, right? And so I started really thinking about it, and I realized I don't have to do all these things. And it's one of the things woke me up. That was, I watched the interview whenever big guy, can't remember his name right. Terry Crews. I watched the interview whenever Terry Crews told everybody about his sexual assault, him getting sexually assaulted. And whenever he did, he name dropped the person who sexually assaulted him. And they had consequences. But Terry Crews is going to have consequences as well. It'll probably hold him back in his Hollywood career, all because he said those words. But at this point in time, one, I have nothing else to lose. And two, no one is telling me not to say names, to protect these people. And I'm not protecting people by holding that information back. I'm not protecting anybody by doing that. So it's better off that I tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and see what comes out at the end of the wash. That in mind, I want to make a couple of points incredibly clear before we begin this next section. One, I am not seeking revenge, and I don't think that punishment is going to be a behavior changing in these people. I don't think it's going to be good for them. I don't think it's going to be good for anybody. By and large, the system of punishment that we have in the United States in or out of the military has been ineffective. By and large, we're divorced from any sort of therapy or therapeutic conditions. It's been divorced from any amount of lowering recidivism rate or something like that. Punishing somebody for their actions, by and large, with the systems of punishment that we have, doesn't make them stop those actions. They just pick right up where they left off the moment they're free again. So I don't want these people punished. We do not need vigilante justice. I don't need any Batmans, Supermans, superheroes, keyboard warriors attacking these people simply because I mentioned them here. And I don't think that that is going to help anything either. There's no evidence whatsoever that a vigilante going to somebody's house and, beating them up or, sending a bunch of mean messages on YouTube or something like that makes the situation any better. So whenever I mention these people by name, I want to make it absolutely clear that I do not want anyone to attack them in any way, for any reason. Mean, violent language, rude comments, going to a YouTube video or downvoting their comments on Reddit. I don't care. It's not going to help. However, if you know Brittany, the last time that I was taught how to deal with somebody with a illness of any type within the United States military, it was in Army ROTC. And they told me, ask, care, escort. We called it the ACE program, and we were all given an ACE card. Ask them about everything, see what they feel, care for them to the very best of your ability, and escort them to the nearest medical personnel. a lot of times in the military, this is just the chaplain, and I know that that is a religious leader, but the chaplain is oftentimes the barrier in between them and medical services. It's taking something that might be one thing. You know, I get scared about my wife or something like that. And taking something that's something like that and seeing whether or not that's a medical issue or it's just maybe their upbringing or something like that. It's just feelings that need to be soothed, which is a lot of times what they are there for. It's part of their job. It's certainly part of their job. And they do have an important position within the United States military. So, your duty as a fellow active duty person is ask, care, escort. At least that's the last thing that I was taught. I don't know what it is now. I don't know what it is for your specific branch, but if you know Brittany and you are trying to protect her from receiving treatment, you're hurting her. You're hurting yourself, and you're hurting everybody else around you. No one is benefiting from that situation. If you know her, your very best and only option that's moral in any way, shape, or form is to help her get medical care. With that being said, back to what happened. Okay, first and foremost, I told her that I was going to contact her chain of command again, and eventually I did. But beforehand, I made all of the information available to her specifically. I'm still working on what and who to sort of edit the document and black out certain parts of the information. So what and who in the documentations that I can release to the general public, to you and anybody who wants to look at it. I want to make sure that I'm not releasing for FOUO information. I forget what the acronym stands for, but secret information, information that can legally get other people in trouble. I'm not so worried about myself. I like I said, I don't have much to lose. But you know, people, stuff that can get other people in trouble, stuff like that. So I'm still working on that, but I made all of that information available to her. Over and over again, I asked her, you know, hey, you sent me to the hospital. Would you like to see the records? You know, hey, I nearly died, and I would show her, you know, this, whenever you do this, this happens, signed by a doctor, you know, what he's saying is true. I would send her the evidence because a lot of times she would say stuff like, I don't trust you with the recording and that's why I won't give it to you. And that's another one of those lies. She still has not gone through with the recording or anything because she knows it's not true. She knows it's not true. She does not want to deal with what she knows is not true. She does not want to try open, honest communication for whatever reason. So, first, I made everything available to her. I uploaded every single document, all 600 plus pages of documents from each individual person, and I broke it up by who it was from. Here is the information from the Mental Health Care Center, or the Scott Mental Health Center on Scott Air Force Base, here in right around Shiloh, Illinois. Here is the information from the Family Advocacy Program there for each and every time that you've taken all the money out of our joint bank account, and I had to get them to force you to put the money back. Here's every single one of your documented cases of financial abuse. Here's you know, who I told and what I told them and where. A lot of the psychiatrist notes and a lot of the psychologist notes within these documents is quoting me verbatim in a lot of ways. They probably can't write down the entire session, but what I've looked through myself, a lot of it is verbatim quotes, and I broke it up by each individual person. These are VA records. They're going to deal with these personnel. And here's the records from the Violence Prevention Center in Belleville, Illinois. And here's the records from this person, here's the records from this person, so that it's not just 600 pages that she has to comb through. I broke it up for her. I told her, you know, I gave the military my entire mental health care records because I want them to know who I am as a person. I want them to know that I wasn't a really manipulative person before I entered the military, and it's just now showing up. You know, I showed specific sides of myself in specific situations, and it's just now showing up, and I'm actually this grandmaster manipulator or something like this. I gave them my entire mental health care record, you know, full stop, because I want them to know who I am, the way my mind works. And I said, you know, your dealing with you isn't going to show up until about 2017. So flip past those documents. You can look at the old documents if you want. I've made all of it available to you, but you specifically aren't going to show up until 2017. So if you want, you can sort of skip to 2017 and start from there and see what happens from there. So I uploaded all the documents. I made them all available to her as one big folder full of files and everything on Dropbox. I added her her email and everything of the sort. And after that, I gave her another chance to sort of talk to me. She ordered me. She said, "Do not call me again. Stop calling me." And I said, "The doctors are telling me to call you. Basically, you can't run from yourself. You are breaking the law. You have an illness that you are not getting treatment for, so you are not going to be able to run from yourself, unfortunately." And so the only way to do things is to go out there, face your problems head on, stop procrastinating, and head to medical, tell them what you've done and why, and they'll figure out what to do with you from there. You'll go through all the rehabilitation. They'll fix all your mental problems. They'll help you fix all your physical problems, the $75,000 of debt that you've gotten yourself into. They'll have you talk with a financial counselor, etc., etc. And they'll probably take care of the entire rest of the divorce process. It's a one-stop shop to cure all of your problems. So, first I called her chain of command again, and I got a different person. I spoke to AC-1 Stokes on the quarterdeck of the CVN-70 USS Carl Vinson. He was the current petty officer of the watch at that point in time. I was given multiple numbers to call, including the DoD Victims Helpline, Family Support Center, Victims Legal Counsel, and the Regional Legal Office. Then I went ahead and put all that stuff together for her to view. I explained every single file so that she wasn't just blindly opening these files one at a time trying to find information. Then I got a call from Lieutenant Louie. That's what he said, Lieutenant Louie, which is someone in her chain of command, I guess. He had a Hawaii number, and then I saved it for future contact with him. And then he called me again, updating the information between me and him, and he gave me even more phone numbers to call. Then I called the Victims Legal Counsel and got on the phone with Lieutenant Commander Laura Bateman, who apparently is stationed out of Hawaii or is currently in Hawaii. She got me in touch with the Naval Criminal Investigative Service in Great Lakes, Illinois. You know, where RTC is, the Recruit Training Command or Boot Camp for the Navy. They said it was a jurisdiction thing, and they got me on the phone to the closest NCIS office to her jurisdiction. That jurisdiction, again, she is stationed on board CVN-70 USS Carl Vinson. It's an aircraft carrier. I do not know where that aircraft carrier is. I don't know where it is. Frankly, I don't want to know where it is. I have nothing to do with aircraft carriers. There's nothing I could do with an aircraft carrier. It's not like they have good snacks on board. What am I going to do with it? I don't know where it is. I don't know whether or not she goes on board and off board the ship all the time. Last I heard, they were making repairs to it. That's about all I know. Where they're doing it, I don't know. But whoever I spoke to, who apparently has jurisdiction on wherever she's at, was a special agent in the Naval Criminal Investigative Service out of the Bremerton, Washington office. I don't know what that means about her or where she's at. I've seen some funky jurisdictions before with my time in the military. You know, whenever the brigade goes from SIUE in Illinois for Army ROTC down to Kentucky to Fort Knox for the summer. Is it Kentucky or Kansas? I don't remember. One of the K-states, I think. So they go to Fort Knox for the summer and they have all their people there. Who's in charge of them? Well, if one of them gets in trouble, they're going to call the Illinois office. If they get in trouble out in town, they're going to get caught by local police. If they get in trouble on base because they're not doing base things right, then they're going to get in trouble with the Fort Knox military police, etc., etc. I've seen wonky jurisdictions before. So I don't know what this means, but I can say these words. This is not bad operational security. I can say exactly these words and exactly what happens, and no one is telling me not to. And there's nothing that tells me not to, not in my military training or not anything else. The authorities, they aren't telling me anything, you know, about how this right here, what's happening right now, is bad. So I spoke with the Bremerton, Washington office of Washington, the state. I spoke with the Bremerton Naval Criminal Investigative Service office, Bremerton, Washington, and I was on the phone with Special Agent Kevin. That's all he gave for a name. He was the current duty station at the office at the time that I called. He let me know that although in San Diego, apparently the statute of limitations for most domestic violence cases is 1 year, since everything happened within military housing, everything goes back 5 years. It's under military jurisdiction. This means that every single one of her crimes is punishable through the Uniform Code of Military Justice and the Manual for Courts Martial. So he let me know that, yes, every one of her crimes is something punishable by the military. Then he went ahead and he got in contact with the Domestic Violence Department of the San Diego PD. And he got my police report number from them, and then he decided to forward it to his chain of command. And that's basically what happened. How did I feel about it? Exhausted. Obviously, I didn't say anything on Veterans Day because she was putting me through the ringer. Of course, I don't want to do any of this. But dealing with somebody like this, I don't know what it is. Like I said, I've said before, I consider it very helpful to view psychotherapists whenever they're doing videos about surviving narcissists. So does she have narcissistic personality disorder? I have no idea. I have no idea. The only thing I know for sure is that she has bad conduct disorder and she's refusing treatment for it. I spoke to my aunt, and she used to be a substance abuse counselor, and she said that there's sort of 5 stages to seeking treatment for issues, and most of the time she was dealing with court-mandated appointments with different people, and they'd be mad at the court and they'd take it out on her. She really didn't like that job, of course. And most of the people were in the first stage, the stage where they're least likely to actually be open to doing anything else other than what they're doing. And that was one of the things that happened to her brother. You know, Brittany's brother had to go to rehab over and over again, and it was always this court mandating thing, and so he wasn't open to any other way of life. And that's exactly where Brittany is now. He eventually stopped any of his behavior. He got his life together, according to his mother. That's who gave me this information. But he got his life together after he saw his father go on a tirade, and he said he asked his mom if that's what he's like whenever he's on some substances, and his mother said yes. And it was like cold turkey. You know, he quit that day. He went to whatever he needed to go to voluntarily, and that really helped him change his life around. But Brittany's not at that stage yet. So I've spoken to some people and everything. I consider it helpful to view psychotherapist videos on YouTube. They really give me a little bit of courage to put this kind of stuff together, and I've been dealing with stuff like that. But again, there's no one that's telling me not to give you the information that is going on right now. Brittany is a human being, is a person that she's mentally ill and she is refusing treatment. She needs treatment. If you know her, trying to get her into a treatment center, calling the base police to force her to get into a treatment center, doing whatever you can to get her into a treatment center, that's your civic duty. If you know her, that's your civic and moral duty, beyond any shadow of a doubt. But it does nobody any favors whenever I say I'm not naming names to protect the guilty. Brittany Nicole Motley. Last I heard, she was a CS2 in the United States Navy. She's stationed on board CVN-70, USS Carl Vinson. That is her legal name. She is still going by her alias, her maiden name, Brittany Nicole Bailey. Last I heard, she was an E5 in the United States Navy, a CS2, a culinary specialist. The closest that I can get from here to her is that she's somewhere under the jurisdiction of the Naval Criminal Investigative Service in Bremerton, Washington. If she's living on base and you're a civilian, you're not getting anywhere near her. And I don't want you near her. And she doesn't want you near her. And the military doesn't want you near her. Again, vigilante justice isn't going to help here. Justice in general isn't going to help here. No amount of punishment is going to get her to change her behavior. It's going to be therapy. It's going to be getting help for her mental illnesses. But I'm no longer holding back names to protect the guilty. Because I'm not doing her any favor. I'm not doing anybody any favor for doing that. And it was wrong for me to do. And I can admit that. Every single second of every single video before this that I've wasted of anybody's time by holding back her name has been wrong. And I have been wrong for doing that. If you know her, it is your civic and moral duty to help her get treatment for her mental illnesses. She's suffering. According to her, she's barely passing her fitness requirements for remaining inside the United States Navy. She doesn't know any other way of life besides what she's already been through. She's running from anybody who tells her no. She's running from anybody who mentions the actions that she's already done. Do not attack her. It is not going to make anything better. And all it's going to do is hurt you and her and everybody else. Hatred is a poison that you drink, hoping somebody else is going to die, and it is not going to happen. If you know her, urge her to get treatment. And that is the only thing that you can do. For me, for her, for everybody. And if you urge her to stay away from treatment in any way, you're making things worse for everybody. She is careening towards a situation where she's going to be sent home packing. And she's going to be right back to living with mom or dad or whoever. And somebody's going to have to take care of her. And somebody's going to continue to have to take care of her until she gets treatment. There is one way out of this. She gets the help that she needs. That's it. There is one way out of this. And 100% of all legal authority and all legal counsel, all medical authority and all medical counsel agrees with me. There is one way out of this. For her to get the treatment that she needs, that she has been ordered repeatedly by many different people to get. That's the only way out of this. If you know her, Brittany Nicole Bailey, urge her to get treatment. And if you're in the military and you know her, it's your job, your duty to do so. To inform anybody in her chain of command that you can reach, to inform anybody in the area that she's in that you can reach, to inform the local authorities, or whatever else. If you support me, don't attack her. It's not going to make anything better. But if you know her, urge her to get treatment. That's the only way anything is going to get any better. So that's the whole thing. That's everything that's happened. That's everything that's been keeping me busy. And that's the whole truth and nothing but the truth. I'm sure I'll feel better after I post this video, but for now, I'm just drained. I'm out of energy. And I'm out of time. I've wasted enough of your time. If you know her, urge you to get some treatment. For now, I've got homework to do. Thanks for watching.